Hi guys. I'm Siri. Welcome to the iOS Beta News channel. Today we will talk about iPhone 14. The iPhone 14 inches is more than a year away. Yet rumors about the 2022 iPhone are already here. Apple could remove the notch, add a hole punch camera, and bring autofocus to the selfie camera. Other upgrades will include a new processor and a possible move to a portless design. Apple's 2022 iPhone is somewhat knowable due to the nature of iPhone releases. The iPhone 14 inches will have many of the same design and feature aspects as the iPhone 12 and iPhone 13, but may mark a significant change in the lineup. It is difficult to pinpoint what the next iPhone will be called, let alone the one after that. We've decided to continue counting each iPhone with a simple +1 for each iteration, and will adjust naming as needed with each Apple release. The current 2020 iPhone is called iPhone 12, so the 2021 iPhone is the iPhone 13 inches, and the 2022 iPhone is iPhone 14. These are just placeholders, as Apple may avoid the superstitious 13 name altogether. iPhone 14 inches features. The functionality and feature set of the iPhone is highly reliant on iOS updates. Other than processor changes and camera changes, there is little alteration that can be made to the hardware that will fundamentally change how iOS operates. Apple previously introduced features like Force Touch and Face ID that caused the entire OS to change with it. Some like Force Touch don't last and are removed, others like Face ID become a staple of the product. The iPhone 14 inches will likely have some groundbreaking technology that alters how a user interacts with their device on a regular basis. Design. iPhone 14 feet will likely retain a similar design to this iPhone 13 feet mock-up. The iPhone 12 was a major change from the rounded edges seen on several generations of iPhone. It gained flat sides and a style reminiscent of the iPhone 4 era of design. The addition of 5G and Magsafe made 2020 a big year for changes to the iPhone. It is expected that the iPhone 13 inches will retain much of these design aspects, with only a spec bump to the cameras and processor. Otherwise, the external design won't be noticeably different except for a new color or additional camera lens. As mentioned before, release style of the iPhone means the 2022 iPhone will be a lot like the iPhone 13. Flat sides, a similar camera system, and maybe a camera bump alteration is expected. The major changes, however, will come from functionality changes in the hardware itself. A reduction or removal of the infamous notch has been rumored every year since it first appeared on the iPhone X, while a slim notch is expected for the 2021 iPhone. Analyst Ming-Chi Kuo reports Apple may ditch the notch altogether in 2022. Removing the notch would be the most significant design change for iPhone since introducing the notch. Kuo says Apple will instead use the hole punch camera system that is used by its competitors like Samsung. The hole punch camera can make a display shine or draw the eye away from the content. This report arrived on March 1, 2021, more than a year from the potential iPhone 14 inches release. Apple may be considering a hole punch camera in lieu of the notch, but a lot can change between then and release. Apple tends to finalize the production design of the iPhone the December before release. Apple's iconography has always relied on what the front of the iPhone looked like. Previously it showed the home button, then the notch, both of which were iconic and unique to Apple. The move to a hole punch camera would make Apple's phone very similar to its competitors, especially in iconography or silhouette. Kuo has an amazing track record, but the further from a product release, the less accurate he is by the nature of the supply chain. He also mentioned the hole punch could be limited to Pro model iPhones depending on the yield rate of the supplier. In another report, Kuo says that the 2022 iPhone will have a unibody design that includes the camera module. This design would add additional internal space for more components. Cameras. The rear camera system will see some basic improvements over the iPhone 13. Apple is expected to push LiDAR to all iPhone models in 2021 with higher megapixel ratings on each camera. An image of the 7-element wide-angle lens in iPhone 12. Apple doesn't change its camera's megapixel count very often, with the last jump from 8MP to 12MP occurring in the iPhone 8 and iPhone X lineup. A leak suggested Apple is considering a jump to a 64-megapixel wide lens and 40 megapixels on the other lenses. Such a large jump seems out of character for the company, where a move to 18 megapixels would be more natural. Some rumors suggest a fourth camera module could be added to a future iPhone. This would be a periscope lens using light folding for long-distance shots. It is more likely that this is coming to the iPhone 15 inches, according to a report from Ming-Chi Kuo. The selfie camera could gain autofocus for the first time, according to Kuo. It is also supposed to take on a hole punch design with the removal of the notch. Apple is investigating hiding certain sensors below the display. and in the bezels to remove the notch completely. The true depth sensor array exists to make Face ID work, so the move to a hole punch camera is more than just moving the selfie camera. Android devices have been using the hole punch design for a while, but they do not have the complexity of Apple's true depth to deal with. Those Android devices have some form of face recognition technology, but it is limited and not as secure as Face ID as a result. Display 120Hz Pro Motion could be introduced in the 2022 iPhone. If the notch is removed, then Apple can make use of the entire iPhone display. This may affect the aspect ratio of the screen, but Apple could choose to keep devices at the same size regardless. Currently 16:9 videos fit perfectly within the display below the notch, so the added space wouldn't change how content is viewed. Apple could choose to make their devices shorter so the active display space is kept relatively the same. This is unlikely, however, since it would require a redesign of the phone case and internals. The hole punch camera would affect how the OS displays information as well. The notch allows a short status bar with battery and signal information, while the hole punch would enable a full-length status bar. Apple could show users more information or provide developers the ability to add status icons similar to Android. Apple will have to address how content is viewed when a hole punch camera is in place. Videos will need to fit on the display without being obscured by the camera, and games will need to acknowledge that in some orientations buttons might be covered by the camera. Apple Watch already benefits from LTPO, so can iPhone. The iPhone 13 inches is expected to use low-temperature polycrystalline oxide LTPO backplanes to enable variable refresh rate displays. This means the iPhone will be able to operate at 120 Hz when needed, then throttle refresh rate to as little as 1 Hz when the faster rates aren't necessary. This is the same technology the Apple Watch Series 5 and later uses to achieve an always-on display. Apple tends to let technology mature before implementing too many bells and whistles in its devices. Some speculate that LTPO will automatically mean an always-on feature for iPhone, but Apple may wait until the iPhone 14 inches to implement it. Biometrics. Apple introduced Face ID with the iPhone 10 as a better and more convenient alternative to Touch ID. It has more data points to analyze and less opportunity to be faked out by bad actors. One thing Apple did not anticipate, however, is a global pandemic that would require everyone to cover their faces in public. Touch ID and Face ID could be used in tandem for the iPhone 14. Since mask mandates began, users have been clamoring for a solution from Apple. The iPad Air 4 introduced a new version of Touch ID embedded in the side button, which could be implemented in future iPhones. Ming-Chi Kuo said that Apple has no timeline for implementing Touch ID in the iPhone power button. While the technology would improve the user experience on iPhone, it isn't ready for the small device. Apple has also been working on implementing Touch ID in the iPhone display. Despite the pandemic, Apple may be waiting to add Touch ID back to the iPhone until it can perfect this approach. Smartphones with fingerprint readers in the display use ultrasonic scans to authenticate the user. This system is less reliable and less secure than Apple's original Touch ID system. Also, this requires a specific location on the screen to be used for Touch ID. While users may expect an entire half of the display to be used for Touch ID, the 2022 iPhone could have multiple forms of biometric authentication. Apple is currently using the Apple Watch and proximity to the iPhone to unlock the device when the user is wearing a mask. Expect this relationship to grow in future models. Other biometric authenticators could be implemented in the future. Apple could one day constantly authenticate a user via voice, walking gait, Apple Watch proximity, Face ID, Touch ID, and ultra-wideband technology. Expect devices like the iPhone 14 inches to have more than one way to authenticate users. 2022 iPhone pricing and release. Apple tends to find a price point and stick to it for a few years. Market trends and currency rates can sometimes affect iPhone pricing, but it is rare to see a drastic change in price. Given Apple's release cycles, the iPhone 14 inches will likely be priced very similar to the iPhone 12. There may be a 1 TB option for the 2022 iPhone, so there would be a new higher price point at about $1,599. So guys, this was all known information at the moment. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, like, subscribe, click the bell. Siri was with you.